today. Once again, this is another episode of The Spice on Leadership TV. My name is Cynthia Onado. Thank you so much for joining me today on the program. Well, today we're going to be talking about certificates. Yes, certificates reveal people to themselves, but on the other hand, they are also a means to measure your intelligence quotient. That's your IQ. But then again, when you take away your certificate, what are those things you can be able to do for yourself? What is your passion? What is your gift? Do your certificates define you? Yes. Why are Nigerians so obsessed with certificates? This is what we'll be talking about today on The Spice. And of course, I have a guest with me that will be discussing this with me. So you don't want to change your dial. Stay here with me. I'll be back after the break.
Be part of our brand. Leadership for God and country.
Leadership TV for God and country.
Welcome back to The Spice on Leadership TV. Before we went on the break, of course, I told you I'll be introducing a guest with us here on the program. Well, today, Dr. Suleiman Barnabas will be joining us. He's currently the head of Department of Sociology and Anthropology at the Bay University, Abuja. He's also a PhD holder in sociology. He has a master's in economics and business, also in security, leadership, and the society, and a BSc in sociology also. Thank you so much, Dr. Suleiman Barnabas. It's so nice to have you here with me. So, of course, I told you what we'll be discussing today when it comes to obsession with certificates in Nigeria. Somehow, let's start with the education system. That is your career, that is what you are a part of. What can you deduce about the education system in Nigeria? It's almost like when somebody is asking, tell me about your family. I think that's the kind of, this is what the question is about.
Yes, I thank you very much for having me. Education is very important. And education, of course, is quite different from certification. Education essentially has to do with the acquisition of skills, the acquisition of character, so as to be able to function effectively in society. So now one way of validating education is to certificate, an individual. So once you have the certificate, you can go anywhere. So the certificate is like introducing you to someone that you are qualified, you are knowledgeable in this particular area. So that's the essence of certificate. Unfortunately, certificate is the end, in quote, right? As far as giving certification to is. Knowledge acquisition, schooling, these are the means. The unfortunate thing in our country today is that people like the end, but they don't like the means. So they like the certificates, but they don't want to go through the process of education. And certificate without education is, a disservice to any society. And so because, unfortunately, the Nigerian society is structured in such a way that you need certificates to get job, you need certificate to, maybe it's a thing of class for some people. And because of that, people now go for the certificate without wanting the education. The education itself. And that's so unfortunate.
Okay, sir. So why is it tagged as unfortunate? Why is it unfortunate, and why is Nigeria so different?
No, it's not a Nigerian thing. To be honest, certificate fraud is a global phenomenon.
Okay.
Unfortunately for us, our institutions are weak. They are unable to, regulate the institutions that issue these certificates out effectively. The institutions are there, they are not as effective as they should be. And secondly, because our political institution is so corrupt, and other institutions are also corrupt, you now find a situation where people, once they have these fake certificates, they easily find their way to even the hospitals. And when that happens, it's an unfortunate thing. Somebody has a certificate that shows that he's a nurse or is a doctor, a medical doctor.
Yeah.
At the end of it all, no knowledge of it,
When it
and
comes
that's why
to
they
practicing.
misdiagnose. So that's the extent to which we consider certificate without proper education as an unfortunate phenomenon.
Okay, sir. Still looking at this obsession, we know recently the federal government and the Nigerian Universities Commission actually banned some universities in some parts of Benin Republic, Togo, and even the UK and Cyprus and the rest of them. But then coming down to the Nigerian society, can we say that it aids this obsession, or is it something that has to do with leadership? Is it the society or is it leadership? Because people can go to any length, cross the 7 seas in Nigeria to go to other parts of the country, to go to an unregulated university, and then just tear me the certificate, give it to me, let me go. So
Well,
what is this?
it's a shared responsibility on the part of the Nigerian state, because we have failed to provide quality education, accessible education, affordable education to the people. And because of that, people now have to go out, to places like Benin Republic, where they can, easily
get one.
certificates, and then easily also, even legitimately get education compared to here. Because here you have to write JAM, and so no matter how good you are, if you don't meet up with the cutoff mark, there's a problem. Now you may even meet up with the cutoff mark, but education in this part of the world, particularly as provided by universities, the demand is very high, and the supply is short, it's low. So because we can't meet the demand for education or certificate, because it's in a continuum, education and certificate,
But sir,
now,
sorry,
they now have to go out of the
you
country
are
to
in
get
the
this.
system. So
Yes.
why is it limited? You said demand is high. The outflow of students from university every year is in thousands, and then the structure is quite limited to take care of the demands of the students and all that. Why is it like that?
No, the demand first is even in, how many universities do we have in Nigeria and compared with our population? And these universities, they are just there in names. They don't have quality lecturers. They don't have quality infrastructure, teaching aid, and so on and so forth. So you discover that even most of the universities we have, they are not giving what they are actually licensed to do. They are not giving knowledge. And so the United States of America has over 3,000, about 5,000 universities. And here we have less than, 200 universities or thereabout. So the demand for education is quite more than the supply.
But the education system is not meeting up with those demands.
Yes, apart from the educational system not meeting up, the number of universities we have, they are not even meeting up. And then there's the idea that it has to be a university education. Polytechnics are not properly optimized. Colleges of education, that's where you have the poorest of people in terms of knowledge, not in terms of money now. The regulation will tell you that if you have 80, you can go to college of education. If you don't get access to, so you have a situation where people just have to go and get the certificate. There's a craze for certificates, and some of these people that are graduates, you go to NYSC camp today. Some of them can't spell NYSC in full. So it's an unfortunate thing for the system, and we hope that I believe in the current Minister of Education. Some steps have been taken, and I believe that if these steps are followed through without fear or favor, a lot of reforms will happen that will bring about these changes that we demand.
Yes, a lot of reform needs to be done in the Nigerian education system. So looking on the other hand now, I know back in the 80s and 90s, we used to have a lot of influx of other African nations into Nigeria to study. Of course, Ghanaians, were part of the education system, either as students or as teachers. from Sudan, even from Saudi Arabia. People were coming from parts of the world to study here in Nigeria. But unfortunately, we are the ones now going over there, paying millions now, 12 billion, 20 to go to the UK, to go to Saudi Arabia, Cyprus, and even Benin and Togo, our neighbors here. So there's also been a recent surge with the Japa syndrome and everybody trying to move to the other part of the world for greener pasture. So Nigerians seem to now have developed this special love for foreign certificates. Sometimes it's about the ease of standard of living over there. Sometimes people just acquire it and then bring them back, and they always tell you, I have a degree from University of Manchester, from Manhattan, from Coventry. So what is the is this something that has to do with status, or you know
Well, it's a combination of so many factors. You see, the truth of the matter is that the rigors of education in Nigeria, particularly on the side of the student, even is far much more than what you experience in the UK and in the US. Now, I
Okay.
can say this because I have, experience of the Nigerian system. I also have experience of the UK system.
Okay.
So, but what is different and why people are actually attracted, to traveling out or japaning, to these countries are one, you don't have to write jam. There are people who have failed jam and they need to, proceed. And if they get admission in this part of
Of the-
they will. Secondly, if you look at the public universities that we have, up until now, a
Federal
whole lot of
university in the States.
problems of strike,
Strike,
and so
yeah.
people don't believe in our educational system. Apart from because you now have to rush the students within 2 months, 3 months. Some people are through with a whole session, not just a semester, because you have to rush them to see how they can meet up with the months and years cumulatively
That they have lost
that
while
they have
sitting at
lost.
home.
So they just rush them. They don't want them to catch up. But the quality of education is not there. And then we lack quality of teachers. Teachers
Oh,
that are
that's
untrained.
another angle that I
Teachers
was
that
trying to
are
go into.
untrained. Today you find people in our university system
Mm.
who have looked for job, several places and couldn't find. And at the end of it all, they just see teaching as the next alternative. And they found their ways, to the university system and to our educational system, generally speaking. So one, it's not about living condition, because the truth of the matter is that most Nigerians who live here, definitely not all, even live better than those guys
over there.
that are there. Secondly, what those guys do there in the US and in the UK, if they make up their mind to do same thing in Nigeria, they'll be better off in Nigeria than that. Do you believe there are people with PhD there that are there as receptionists, that are there as security people, taxi drivers? But when they come to Nigeria, they never want to do it. So until we are so patriotic and have this idea that work, there's dignity in labor. It's not just about this thing, because what you can't do in your own fatherland, you go outside the country and you start doing it. So these are the issues surrounding. And of course, there's this mentality that if you are coming with certificate from the US, the UK, and the truth of the
You're
matter
the
is that
higher
there are
level.
more fake universities in the US than in Nigeria.
Okay.
The best universities are in the US, the worst universities are in the US. So some people come with certificates from universities that can't compare with many universities in Nigeria. If you go to Bayes University, if you go to Covenant University, if you go to some universities that we have in Nigeria, you look at the quality of teaching aids and the quality of teachers. You don't have them in those universities in the US and in the UK, where some of them bring certificates from.
Wow. The system here in Nigeria needs a total overhaul, from the leadership down to the society, we the people ourselves, our mindset and all that. You also talked about teachers. I know discussing this with my mother some years back, and she said in the 80s, 90s, of course, there were teachers training colleges where you specialized schools for specialized things. Teachers training college for teachers. Even we in the media now, there were TV school, media school. This is where you face squarely the career that you are pursuing. So, but today, these days, apart from the colleges of education, of course, we don't really have those specialized teachers training colleges. I know they still exist, but they are not as specialized as they used to be. And then you see people just going into the teaching line because of a lack of jobs and in all of that. Is that also to blame for what we are seeing in the education sector? Because on the other hand, too, we got to I got to read this on social media a few days ago, where private schools with children with school fees that's running to 600, 700,000, but then they end up paying the teachers 70, 80,000. So how do you expect those teachers to even teach your children or teach the students the right way? Because number one, they've not been trained properly. The remuneration is really poor. So there's just a lot. What can you say about that?
Well, it's unfortunate that our emphasis is on university education, and that's what has affected these training schools, like school of journalism,
Technical schools for
technical schools
engineering.
for engineering and what have you. Because today our emphasis is on university education certificate, and because that's what largely Nigerians rely on civil service jobs, and so everybody want to work, you want to get to the civil service. Now our emphasis must come down to quality of education, particularly from the primary schools to the secondary schools and then to the university.
Universities,
You
yeah.
go to universities today, there are people in our universities that cannot read and write properly because bad secondary school education, bad primary school education. You go to some primary schools in the particularly public schools, where my emphasis here now is on public schools, because that's where you have the majority of Nigerians who cannot afford good,
Yeah, the low income
the high,
children.
exactly. That's where they attend, and you don't have good teachers there. Some of the teachers can't even speak English. And then they force them, when you fetch water for in all these suburbs, even in Abuja,
Yeah.
when you go to farm for a teacher, that's your CA, you get 30/30. And so you see somebody coming out with first, but as soon as he gets to the secondary school, he can't read, he can't write. So we need to declare a state of emergency on our educational system. Training of teachers. What we have as colleges of education today are some of the worst places for learning. People who have failed. Go and look at the qualifications. I think the federal government needs to take that very seriously. People
And
who
these are
have
people that are
F,
supposed to
these are
transmit
the people who
knowledge.
transmit knowledge. That's
They
why,
should have the best of the best.
ideally, that used to be the case. Unfortunately, what we have today is that secondary school students in the villages who have finished from, they have written WAEC, and then maybe they didn't do well, the secondary school system there will employ them. And the kind of suffering that some of them are going through. School fees, salaries of teachers are not being paid. Primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, they are some of the most neglected people in our societies. Local government don't pay them. State governments don't pay them. And the stories all across the country. If you go to Kogi State, it's even worse. We see what's happening there. So until there's and we must not blame federal government alone for this. Primary school is primarily the responsibility of the local government and then the state governments. So if they neglect that sector, and as they have, then we're in serious problem.
trouble. Definitely, we're in serious trouble. Okay, moving on now. I want to talk a bit about politicians and all the certificate scandals that we have come to see over time, state governors, ministers, and what have you. So why is it so easy for we to have leaders that can't even vouch for the amount of the kind of education that they have had access to? Why do we keep having this continuous wave of certificate scandals within the
political class.
sphere? I mean,
I think you see the most unprincipled of people are the people we have today in our politics. The most unprincipled. I'm a political sociologist. My father is a politician. I have brothers that are politicians. I have friends that are politicians. But that institution is filled with people that should never be given any leadership position in society. You know, we have seen talks emerge as House of Rep members in this country, as members of state House of Assemblies. And when that happens, you imagine the kind of society we have. And that's why we must put in place a leadership recruitment system or process that allows us to get the best of people, not necessarily in terms of education by certification, but character, quality of people who fight on the street, people who kill other people. You go and bring them and make them House of Rep members, senators, you make them governors. That's why we see all kinds of things that you should never imagine happen among human beings happen in our country. Because we have, criminals have found themselves, in the position of power. Actually. And now there's nothing, there are no examples to their own children, and so they can't even be examples to the larger society. So I think that something needs to be done, because we have seen people that have been paraded by the police as kidnappers, as ritualists,
criminal history or the other,
serving in the leadership of National Assembly, and I will know some of them.
Okay,
it's a serious problem. Yes,
it's a serious problem, and our leadership is another sector that we need to, create an entirely different atmosphere around the people we accept as our leaders. What kind of record do they have? What kind of experience, do they have? Are there informations out there for us to have access to? It's not like something that you have to pull out of them or force them to show you.
Exactly.
You want to lead me, but I should be able to have access to everything.
My sister, for you to get job here in this, for anybody to get job here, what's the minimum qualification? Serious job, I'm not talking about.
A BSc, it's enough.
BSc. But what's the highest certificate to become governor, level of education to become president or governor in this country? SSC.
Well,
so the system needs to be,
it
shouldn't be. I'm not saying that people need certificates to have the qualities of leadership. As far as I'm concerned, leadership is about, taking the lead in meeting the needs of others. When you have people who have empathy, people who are conscientious, people who have character, people who feel the pains of others, those are the people that should emerge as leaders. How do you see that in this country, Nigeria has to borrow to buy car for former governors who are serving at the National Assembly? Nigeria has to borrow to buy cars for former ministers. You see, as far as I'm concerned, there are two evils bedeviling this country. One is the evil of greed, and the other is the evil of poverty. Okay. The evil of greed is being perpetuated by our leaders. Okay. People who have, accumulated so much that accumulation becomes a sickness that wants to kill them. And yet, from their villages, from their states, from their local governments, you see classes that are not functioning. You see poverty in its manifest form, and they care less for it. That you have to borrow to buy cars for governors who are just living as, look at some of the people who have in the National Assembly. Former governors haven't served for 8 years. Some of them went on to become ministers, and now they have gone to the Senate. And then Nigeria needs to borrow money to go and buy car, 160 million or thereabout for them.
Well,
it's unacceptable.
Our leadership in Nigeria is also a very big problem for the average Nigerian. It's something that we really have to tackle. Just like you get to see their kids getting certificates from other parts of the country, and then you wonder, don't they wish the same for the other kids in Nigeria, for everybody to be as advanced as they are or as their children are? But then it's something that we'll keep working on as Nigerians. But then finally, Dr. Suleiman, what do you have to say out there for every graduate that watches our program here and then is thinking about the obsession with certificates? Maybe has their BSc and doesn't have the opportunity to advance to master's degree, or even with just a school start certificate. What kind of advice do you have to say to them?
First and foremost, certificate is just it's not everything. My advice is let us develop ourselves. Self-development, education. And education has to be in character and in learning. Acquiring the necessary skills that will make you function in our societies. Don't depend, certificates don't give jobs these days. Certificates don't give food, put food on the table. We know so many people today that didn't have the opportunity to acquire the level of education that they would have wanted to. But they are very sound. They've gone into IT. Some of them have even become founders of these fintech companies, and they are employing so many people. So let's find something to do and build up ourselves and contribute to society. Our access to resources, is located in the contributions that we give to society, not in the certificates that we have. And so contributions to society. I have a student, 2013, a graduate of, I'm sure you know him, Dixon Nsofo, the founder of Korape, multi-billionaire. Within the space of 1 week, raised $17 million.
Oh, wow.
Or there are $15 million or thereabout in New York. You can Google Korape and see. Young boy, multi-billionaire, floater wave, a graduate from Babcock, and look at how much is impacting society. Not waiting to go into politics. What we have today is that most of our young people are all wanting to get into politics because that's where the laziest of people go and make money.
Okay, just with the whole obsession with wanting to be in the civil service and get paid at the end of the day. I think what I picked from what you said, is self development, looking for a problem that's around you and then finding a way to solve them. That in a way itself is a way to help the society, and you can actually make it from that little corner of yours. What that thing that's lacking in your community. Maybe there's nobody that repairs cars around there. In what way can you serve? There's no water. In what way can you serve that community? You notice, okay, there's nobody around here that repairs shoes. There's no shoe company. There's no barber shop. Just in your little corner, what problem can you solve? That is what I was able to deduce from what you said. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. But on an ending note, on social media, people always say school na scam. What do you have to say about that? Is school actually scam?
No. School is not scam. The richest of people, the most famous of people, are people who went to school. Maybe their experience in Nigeria, and I haven't told them that the key is education. Now they're educated, they can't find the door to open and all. School no be scam. Okay. School na education na the solution. But it's not the school by certificate. So I could say certificate is a scam, but education is not a scam.
Certificate is a scam.
Could be a scam, but education is never a scam.
The self-development and education is not a scam. Certificate, that is what is a scam. Thank you so much, Dr. Suleiman Barnabas, for joining me on the program today.
Thank you so much.
All right, people, that's all we have for you today on The Spice. Yes, it's Nigeria or Nigerian Success with Certificate. I hope you're able to learn a thing or two from our program today. Join me next week on the program. Still Cynthia Onwado. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.